Thank you for joining the Judaism Demystified podcast. You once gave a speech that went viral about Jewish identity and how rallying around the flag or conjuring up the Holocaust must not be the determining factors of who we are. Can you elaborate on this?
Yes, indeed. It is a fact that the vast majority of Jews in the world are connected to their Jewish roots and to the people today via two significant events, one enormous tragedy, one of enormous hope and promise. The first is the Shoah, the tragedy of the Holocaust, which we could see as the culmination of the tragedies of Jewish diaspora existence. The hope and the excitement, of course, is the establishment of the State of Israel. Now, these are two very different events, though some actually might connect them in the Chazon Atzamot HaYeveshot of the Navi Yechezkel, when he actually sees this coming out, this valley of dead bones, and it comes to life again. And in many ways, the proximity of the establishment of the State of Israel to the Shoah is as dramatic as the vision of Yechezkel, of the prophet Ezekiel. But they are two very different dimensions to contemporary identity. One is expressing a sense of solidarity out of pain and loss and hostility towards Jews, today which we call antisemitism. And the other is a solidarity around the resurgent ethnic identity. Of course, that's a generalization. There's an enormous spectrum of Zionist ideology, and people are attached and are devoted to Israel for a variety of different reasons. But if we look at the majority of diaspora Jewry today, and especially in the United States, the vast majority of people who deeply care about Israel are not people who are connected to their own spiritual identity as Jews. And they're not rooted within knowledge and understanding of what it means to be Jew, let alone praxis. In fact, I'm astounded at how many significant American Jewish leaders are absolute amei haaretz in Jewish terms. They're ignoramuses. In many ways, it's very inspiring, because why on earth should somebody who really doesn't know very much about Judaism and his or her religious heritage feel so passionately about Israel? But it nevertheless reveals that there is what is referred to often in certain Ashkenazi circles as the Pintalayid, the little Jew, or the element of the nitzotz, perhaps is a better term to use, the spark that somehow remains, that even when Jews are assimilated, they still feel some sense of connectedness. And perhaps it's particularly in the American context where ethnicity has been able to flourish in a way that it has been unable to do in many other Western diaspora countries. So this sense of ethnic connectivity is there. But an ethnic connectivity in itself is not sustainable. If you have a past that had some connection with great historical events, whether they are tragedies like the Shoah or the establishment of the State of Israel, and especially if you went through moments that were very defining, like the crisis of the Six-Day War, which was probably the only time since the establishment of Israel where we really thought that Israel might be wiped out. And those stimuli for ethnic solidarity are very much present, have been present within the parent generations. But now we have a younger generation that doesn't feel that sense of connectedness to their own ethnicity in the same way. And while there are plenty of people that feel very strongly connected to Israel, the vast majority of young diaspora Jews don't feel connectedness simply on the basis of their ethnicity. And therefore, if the appeal to their identity is simply on the basis of some kind of solidarity with Israel as a political reality, then we are going to miss the mark. We are not going to be able to sustain and maintain that kind of bond. People have got to feel a connectedness to their Jewishness that is far more profound than simply a sense of solidarity with a political entity. And that's even more so when it comes to the question of anti-Semitism. Resurgent anti-Semitism has led to a certain amount of resurgent Jewish identity. That's true. But first of all, we need to ask ourselves, what is the value of an identity that is dependent upon people's hate and hostility? And is that a value? Is that an identity that is sustainable? And what kind of quality is it? Do we really want to have to depend upon the hostility and our vulnerability in order to be able to maintain our Jewish identity? This seems to me to be a very poor and pitiful kind of identity that in many cases, is the only kind of stimulus that binds people to their sense of Jewish collective identity. So if these things alone, I'm afraid that that's the reality for the vast majority of diaspora Jews. The secular Jewish religion of our times revolves around the sense of battle against anti-Semitism, the memory of the greatest tragedies of anti-Semitic manifestation, and a sense of ethnic solidarity. I don't belittle these things. Of course, we must be continuously vigilant against anti-Semitism. And of course, I want solidarity with Klal Israel and not just one segment of the Jewish people. But if these things alone are the basis for maintaining Jewish identity, it's unsustainable. We will not be able to pass it on to future generations, and ultimately the Jewish people will disappear.
Yeah, I mean, holding on to a victimhood mentality will probably not be attractive for the next generation, because they'll just be like, we don't want to be picked on anymore, and we just want to have a new identity, and this is a burden on us.
Yes, and
Yeah.
even if it's a futile hope, even if anti-Semitism is an ineradicable virus within human society, like hatred generally in some forms. You know, there was the witticism, I think it was Israel Zangwill, who said, Jews are like everyone else except more so, and anti-Semitism is like any other prejudice except more so. Well, that more so is significant, but nevertheless it is very much a reflection of a human reality. And I don't think we're ever going to entirely eliminate it. But that surely can't be enough. It might be enough for Jean-Paul Sartre to be able to define what Jewishness means. But for me, and I would think for most people who feel passionately about Judaism as a wonderful religious way of life, of its enormous beauty and wealth and depth and richness, the idea that Jewish identity can be reduced as simply surviving because of the hatred of the Gentiles or of those Gentiles that hate us, or simply because of our own ethnic commonality, seems to me to be pretty pathetic.
So what would be like a solution to this problem? Is it just Torah observance, or is it something deeper than that?
Well, I think it's important to recognize today that we don't live in a monolithic world, and therefore forms of Jewish identity are bound to be diverse. If you have a monochromatic identity of any kind, it suggests some kind of artificiality, because humans are diverse, as Chazal, as our sages themselves say. Just as their faces are different, so their opinions are different. So diversity of opinions, diversity of approaches towards even what it means to be Jewish is a healthy reality. And Orthodox Jews shouldn't feel threatened by that. They should be able to see it as an opportunity, especially in Israel. In Israel today, unfortunately, I'm significantly connected with the establishment because of my work in interfaith relations. But I think the establishment's fear of alternative forms of Judaism is a complete misdirection of where we need to put our energies. The problem in Israel today is, above all, and I would say that's in the Jewish world at all, of a complete alienation from our Jewish tradition and heritage. And therefore, anything that brings people to connect with the beauty of our heritage should be encouraged. It shouldn't be something that needs to be seen as something threatening in any way. Of course, in Israel, it's also connected to monopolies and to exclusive controls over certain areas of Jewish religiosity. And nobody voluntarily relinquishes power, and therefore those who have power want to maintain it as absolutely as they can. But what I want to encourage, and what I would hope everybody who cares about being Jewish would encourage, is precisely for people to search to find that beauty and meaning and significance in terms of their Jewish identity within the sources. Yes, so that's Torah study, and that is, of course, the richness of the music, art, all various aspects that are referred to as culture, that have been nurtured throughout Jewish tradition with Torah as its core. Of course, I would like people to lead a religiously observant life, but I'm not so naive, and I think misdirected, to think that we can successfully guarantee that, and that we should, that it's even desirable to be able to guarantee absolute unanimity in any way. And therefore, anything that encourages people to look to deepen their understanding of the richness of their intellectual, spiritual, cultural heritage should be encouraged.